Hello, everyone. This is Margaret Manning with 60 and Me. This is the place where women over 60 come to be inspired. You know, technology has been a great liberator for us. It's given us a lot of independence and opened many doors. But for many women, it's very terrifying and confusing. My guest tonight is Jennifer Cairns. Jennifer is the founder of eGurus, Technology Tutors in beautiful British Columbia in Canada. And she's going to help us unravel this technology world. So welcome, Jennifer.
Thank you very much for having me. And I look forward to being able to share any knowledge that I have.
Thank you very, very much. Well, you know, our community is about 30,000 women over 60. We have a few a little younger and older. But this is the age, I think, where you start realizing that technology is out there and you want to be part of it or not. But I just wanted to ask you a quick question. On your website, you say that your company helps people navigate the technology adventure. And I just thought that was a great use of a word. And can you tell us why you say that? Why technology is an adventure?
Because I think too often people are too overwhelmed by the thought of using technology. And I think that if you take a look at it in piece it out as to how it can help you and switch it around that fear to not being scared and looking at it as, wow, this is exciting. This is something new. Just like when you go to the store and you get a new outfit, it's exciting and you get to go out and wear it.
Yeah.
If you've learned some new skill, it's empowering. And I think that just changing your mindset opens your mind to be able to actually learn the technology to your best advantage and not having any hang-ups and that little voice inside your head saying, I can't do this. It's too different.
Yeah. No, that's perfect. And I think that you're right. I think that that's the attitude. It's all about mindset again. What are the types of questions that are most frequently asked? What would you say are the three most common questions that you get asked?
That's really tricky because we do deal with so many different technologies. It's not all about computers anymore. There's tablets and smartphones and e-readers, as well as the traditional computer. I think the core behind everything of why people have technology, I think one of the core elements is communication and communicating better. So whether it's learning Facebook because they're finding that their grandkids and their kids are being that's how they're communicating. So being in that environment allows them to be in that family loop. Basic email, learning how to utilize, just being able to read books digitally and not being, having to go to the store and purchase the book when you start losing your ability to move around and it's a little bit more difficult, or you lose your license and you're not driving anymore. That's when the technology really works to your benefit. A very common seminar that we provide is entering the Facebook and the social media world on your own terms. A lot of what prevents, I see, the older demographic jumping into Facebook is the element of privacy. The older generation is much more private than the younger generation. And so it's ensuring them that, you can participate in the Facebook environment on your own terms and as to how much you're willing to expose your personal information, which I think is a key element. And that is usually one of the deciding factors between someone going onto Facebook and not.
So let's talk a little bit about privacy. I think that's a really important topic. And I think that a lot of people, as you said, fear getting into the technology world because they're afraid they're going to make a mistake with online banking or they're going to be taken advantage by somebody. So how do you approach the topic of privacy? I mean, for example, passwords. How do you advise people to deal with passwords and settings that you can do?
And funny you bring up passwords. I'm always frightened to ask someone if they know their password because it's a common thing. Everyone can never keep track of all of them. What I actually suggest you do is you keep a master list. I have, most of the time, people actually have it handwritten. That's one of the problems is people think that if they jump into technology, it's all or nothing. You have to do everything or, and not use anything traditional, which I disagree. I have a lot of my clients write out their passwords and have it a master sheet and put it somewhere else if it's inside a book in another room, just so that it's safe and away from the computer. I recommend that you really do have a different password for each account. I know that is a little bit more of a struggle, but it really does protect you if someone were to get a hold of that one password. So many accounts now are interconnected and we sign in through different accounts that if you get into one account, they have a lot more ability to get into your other accounts as well. Solution in creating those passwords is maybe finding, say for instance, you have a Skype password. Well, always pick maybe a symbol or a number that you can put in the front and the end of the password, and then use the program or the account name in the middle. So say, for instance, I always use, I'm just using this as an example, I always use, say, my favorite number 7. So I would always put a 7 in the front and the end of a password and perhaps a symbol. And then if I'm signing in for Google or Gmail or Skype, that would be the word that would be in between those two symbols. So it's sandwiched.
So 7 Google, 7, and then the symbol.
That's correct.
That's actually that's a good advice.
It's very important that you do have numbers and symbols mixed in capital letters, and you'll notice there's quite a few companies now will not allow you to create a password unless you've covered those bases. A very interesting website that you can go to is called howsecureismypassword.net. Very interesting. You can type in your existing password and it will tell you how quickly a computer can hack it. And so it's amazing. If you have a password that you always use, type it in and see what it comes back. And then add just a symbol or add just a tweak to it, and you'll be amazed at how many years it can add on, because really these computer programs, they just sit and go through all of the different calculations and probabilities of what your password could be. So eventually it will break through it. So it's a question of putting in these little extra barriers and symbols that will slow the computer's ability to be able to crack it.
So you mentioned hacking, and I was going to ask you about that and scams that, people send you an email, you've won $1 million and, just send us your, $10,000, to get, the million. Does this frighten people? Is this something you have to advise people about, not to open attachments to email and that sort of thing?
It does. And, I always remind people, especially seniors, you're street smart. So use those street smarts when you're on a computer. If you have that feeling in your gut, there's a reason why you have that. I always say that if you don't know the person or the email, or it's too good to be true, well, hey, it's too good to be true. We've had a lot of problem in BC with a certain scam we have where they're calling the individual at their home and frightening them and telling them that they're with Microsoft and that their computer is infected and that they need to get permission. You need to allow them onto the computer to be able to clean up the virus and the problems that it's having. And they prey on the fear and the unknown. And so then once they get onto the computer, they run certain software in the background. They then are saying, I want this amount of money. And it's not uncommon that I've seen people having to pay $200-300, which is very sickening. And so generally, my rule of thumb is Microsoft is never going to contact you. The issue that a lot of people have is it's the social engineering of how people are trying to get that information from you. My rule of thumb is if they've interrupted you and they've phoned you, you don't owe them anything. So just hang up the phone. Don't even engage in a conversation, because as you engage in a conversation, they actually are learning about you and learning certain information. I've had certain individuals that have not necessarily gotten the point that they're paying, but when I get on the computer, the person who's logged on has already started to make a list of accounts and passwords and so forth. Just not even engage in the conversation. and hang up.
Yeah.
You owe them nothing.
Yeah, so there are some valid concerns. I mean, another thing I know has happened to me sometimes is you'll get an email that will say, in order to validate your bank account or something, please put in your password and confirm your account. And I guess the advice is, that like you just said with Microsoft, a bank is not going to ever ask you to put your password in. It's not going to proactively ask you to do that kind of thing.
Oh, gosh, no. And I always say that whenever you log into an account, you always have a message area, even if it's in your bank or anything. The bank will never contact you. If I ever get an email, and gosh, they are very convincing.
Mm-hmm. They look like they're real sites.
They do. I mean, Apple has recently come out with one, and they keep asking me to verify, and I ignore it. And because if you look closely, they'll just change a certain letter, and certain word they use the logo and everything to make it look like it's legitimate. But if you ever have an issue with that, never follow a link from an email. Go to the website through your web browser and log in as you normally would. Never follow that link, only if you have said, hey, I've forgotten my password. Because then you know for sure that it is you signing in and you're not being sent to a website that's being made to look like it. The other part, and I'm quite diligent about, is if someone phones me and says they're with a bank, I don't go and actually be very forthright and jump into the conversation with them. I actually will take down the number and also look online, and I will phone back the bank so that I know that I'm actually talking to the bank and not someone pretending to be the bank.
It's a shame that we have to be that cautious about it. But the good news, I suppose, is that, there's plenty of ways now that we can protect ourselves. I mean, for example, go back to Facebook. We mentioned that some older people are nervous about being so transparent, that they don't want to have every picture they put up visible to the world. But if you do take the classes like you described, you can go in and set your privacy settings to anticipate some of those fears and address them. So how would you suggest people deal with Facebook particularly? That's such a big one.
I think that you need to take a look at going into the privacy settings and choosing how, first off, in your profile, how much do you want to share about yourself? Secondly, who do you want to see that information? And Facebook really does have an area where you really can pick and choose who sees your pictures, what do they see about your personal information. When you post something and you share a thought, you actually have the ability to just share it amongst your friends and not the whole world. So there are a lot of parameters that way. I have also suggested to people, there was another scam, and I've had a few clients where their grandson's Facebook account has been hacked into. So that person was impersonating them. And they've said, oh, I'm away on holiday, Grandpa, and I need some money sent to me. Can you send me some money? Well, you're thinking, well, hey, it's inside the Facebook account. It's got to be legitimate. I always say, have a little secret password. I used to do this with my daughter when she was younger. We had a secret password. If anyone showed up after school and said, your mom said that I was to give you a ride home, she can say, well, what's the secret password? And if they don't know it, then she knows that, okay, this isn't legitimate. I know it sounds very paranoid, but it really doesn't it doesn't take a lot of your time. It's just having these little tools in your pocket really eases your mind, and you feel like you're in control and you're on your own terms as to how you're using this particular program or whatever program you choose to be using.
Yeah, no, honestly, Jennifer, that is fantastic advice. I mean, the secret word, actually, it's funny you should say that, because I remember when I was a little girl too, that I had secret word that I had to remember. And I think some of these things circle back around. But, the thing is, you started at the beginning saying that there are so many positive things from technology, the way you can connect with friends and family, the way that you can look after your medical information and be more independent, physically. You can do shopping online, save yourself the hassle, and banking, of course, all those positives. So I think we should probably close the section on piracy and privacy, I should say, being, positive about the good things that technology gives us.
Definitely. There is just so many wonderful things. Especially more and more companies are starting to come on board. I mean, even the public libraries, I don't know what it's like over where you are, but our public libraries, I have my clients, they go in and they reserve their books and they put them on hold. We now have our library supply Kobo e-readers, so they're able to rent an e-reader and have the digital books, or reserve the digital books and put them right onto their own e-readers. So it just opens up a whole new world. As you age, one thing I noticed in working with seniors, I didn't really realize how isolated they were. So it's really exciting to be able to show them that there's all these different tools out there, and it just opens a whole new world to them.